Andrew Weaver joins me now from Victoria. Mr. Weaver, thanks for joining us. Just before we get to the LNG project, can I ask you for your reaction to the federal government's announcement today on Trans Mountain that it will appoint a retired Supreme Court Justice, Frank Iacobucci, to oversee new consultations with Indigenous groups in an effort to give this project legitimacy? What do you think of that?
I think it's a fine move to actually appoint an independent and highly regarded individual to do that. So I do commend government in that respect. I'm a little more concerned about the aspect of the projects at the NEB process that I'm participating in as an intervener, and that's the marine shipping component. I was an intervener in the previous assessment, both as a MLA representing an affected region, as well as an expert scientist with expertise in ocean physics. And my focus was on the marine shipping. And frankly, I put in a myriad questions, none of which were satisfactorily answered. And I'm very troubled by the fact that Mr. Trudeau has given such a short time, 22 weeks, with a predisposed outcome, which is he's on record saying the pipeline will be built. Does not bode well for confidence in this new process, but at this stage I've applied to be an intervener again, and I will be ensuring that the evidence that I put in last time gets answered. Simple things like, did you know that the entire oil spill response that was submitted in the last round was predicated on the existence of 20 hours of sunlight? Well, there's no latitude south of Tuktoyaktuk that ever has 20 hours of sunlight. So it's just outrageous. And when you simply ask the question, the response I got was that the NEB panel had the information it needed in which to make an informed decision. Well, it's outrageous.
All right. I mean, not only are you an intervener, you've called for a Made in BC assessment process full out. Right. You've called the federal process in the past a sham. Do you have faith in this new approach from the federal government?
At this stage, I do not. However, it's a lot easier I think picking up my bat and ball and going home and not at least trying to participate would be the wrong approach, given that we put so much time in the past. But as you've said, we have called the province to evoke the 30-day clause it has in light of the fact that the Federal Court of Appeal ruled that the previous process was so flawed, to evoke that rule to pull out of the equivalency agreement and conduct their own environmental assessment. This is what should be happening. I'm a little concerned about the cozy relationship, it seems, between Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Horgan on things like LNG, which are somewhat related to Trans Mountain. And I would suggest that the BC government is not using all the tools at its disposal that it has campaigned on to actually ensure this project doesn't move forward.
Okay, let's talk about the big LNG project that was given approval yesterday. You touched on it. It's described as the biggest ever private investment in a project like this. $40 billion, 10,000 jobs in British Columbia, $23 billion in revenue over the next decade or so. And I know you're laughing at that. You take issue with the numbers and you oppose the project. How come?
Well, look, it's $40 billion. This is hyperbole. Let's just lop off $12 billion right there, because that's being spent in Asia building the facility. And the reason why is because Trudeau has given steel tariff exemptions to it because LNG Canada didn't want to build it here. The 10,000 jobs, it's another laughing number, because those are temporary foreign workers who will come in to build. And it's only been a day since the announcement, and I've already had union leaders and local people in Kitimat calling to complain that the hiring is of temporary foreign workers. So, what has happened here is a classic example of politicians looking for ribbon cutting, looking out for a short-term political win, as opposed to thinking out the long-term consequences. The why I have been opposed is it basically comes down to this metaphor. Let's suppose there's a town that has an overabundance of ice cream shops in it. You're not going to make a go of bringing in another ice cream store and try to win economically. The only way you're going to sell your product is if you come in and you give away ice cream. Sure, you'll have lots of customers. You're giving away the ice cream for free. That's exactly what we've done here in BC, but the ice cream is actually liquefied natural got.
All right, but a whole lot of people along what will be the pipeline route and have support this project. It got support here from all the federal parties in Ottawa, not Miss May, not the Green Party, but the other federal parties. So there seems to be a lot of buy-in for this project in northern BC.
So, what people buy into is they want economic stimulus. And we get that. We understand that. And what I'm excited about is not us chasing the economy of the last century and race for the bottom economics, but what we're developing here in British Columbia through the Clean Growth Strategy. In the last election campaign, the BC NDP did not have an economic vision for this province. It was really campaigning on "We're not the BC Liberals." We did offer an economic vision. It's one that builds on our key strategic strengths, our ability to attract and retain the best and brightest here because of what we can offer, our outstanding education system, and our boundless resources in terms of wood, energy, and water. And that Clean Growth Strategy has been adopted by the BC NDP. It will be announced as part of an emissions reduction strategy later this fall. And the jobs associated with that, when you see the economic modeling results, will make these so-called LNG jobs pale in comparison. So that's very exciting. Okay. With that said, there's been a lot of misinformation about how much we're going to actually earn from this LNG as well. Okay,
let's finish on this then. You have you're keeping the BC NDP in power there with your power sharing arrangement. You talked about the plan you're working on with the BC NDP, a climate plan. This affects the climate plan, presumably. Are you in any way suggesting that you could pull that support for the minority government in British Columbia over this LNG decision?
So we have in our confidence and supply agreement statements that says we will introduce a plan to reduce emissions by 40% by 2030. We insisted that the BC NDP put that in legislation, and it is now a law that we have to meet those targets. We have worked very collaboratively and constructively with the Ministry of Environment and Minister George Heyman. I'm quite excited about what's happening. Does it help that LNG Canada wants to add the single biggest point source of emissions in British Columbia or Canadian history? No, clearly it doesn't. And it actually points to the kind of irony that we have with political leaders like Mr. Trudeau, who've lost credibility internationally on this file, and frankly is being mocked in some countries, particularly Switzerland, in a recent full-page article.
Well, hang on. Does Mr. Horgan lose credibility on this file? He supports it.
Well, so Mr. Horgan has an awful lot of credibility to lose if the climate clean growth strategy that is going to be announced this fall does not actually give a realistic path towards reducing emissions.
And at that point, would you be prepared to pull your support if it's not to your liking?
So I'm not willing. I don't believe that picking up your bat and ball is the way forward. I believe in constructive, collaborative approach to governance. That's why you people have elected Greens, whether it be in Ontario, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, or frankly, civic election in Vancouver. And I think you'll see a very strong surge of support for the federal Greens later this year because we demonstrate what it means to work with people, to actually ensure good governance, and to actually try and hold to account those who make decisions that we think are not in the best interest of present and future generations.
Andrew Weaver, good to talk to you today. Thanks for your time. We'll talk again.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.